political trends and voters' decisions have real-life consequences for thousands of people every day. From the conflicts in Yemen and Syria, to Shinzo Abe's assassination in Japan, to the minute details of your local trash pickup, politics matters. Isaac Asimov said, "There is a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there always has been." The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread winding its way through our political and cultural life, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. There are a litany of petty legislative offenses on education on which I could pick today. Ron DeSantis' Don't Say Gay bill, the topic du jour of critical race theory about which only old white men for some reason seem to be angry. Forbidding the teaching of evolution in schools, an absurdity that I could see through when I was a freshman in high school, somehow seems to still be an issue of contention. Effective education is crucial in defending against any and all absurdist doctrine, and those that seek to undermine education have the most to lose from its efficacy. Which brings me to Oklahoma, HB 1775. Prohibition of race and sex discrimination. A. Purpose. It shall be the policy of the Oklahoma State Board of Education to prohibit discrimination on the basis of race or sex in the form of bias, stereotyping, scapegoating, classification, or the categorical assignment of traits, morals, values, or characteristics based solely on race or sex. General prohibition. No teacher, administrator, or other school employee shall require or make part of any course offered in public school the following discriminatory principles. 1. One race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex. 2. An individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, is inherently racist or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. 3. An individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment solely or partly because of his or her race or sex. 4. Members of one race or sex cannot and should not attempt to treat others without respect to race or sex. 5. An individual's moral character is necessarily determined by his or her race or sex. 6. An individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. 7. Any individual should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of his or her race or sex. Or 8. Meritocracy or traits such as hard work ethic are racist or sexist, or were created by members of a particular race to oppress members of another race. Section E. Parents' rights. Parents and legal guardians of students enrolled in public schools in this state shall have the right to inspect curriculum, instructional materials, classroom assignments, and lesson plans to ensure compliance with 70 OS 2417B, consistent with 20 OS 2001 to 2002. No public school shall interfere with or infringe upon the fundamental rights of parents to determine their child's education. That, put simply, means if mommy and daddy are mouth-breathing meth heads that think that Jesus walked with Stegosaurus, they can get you fired for teaching their unfortunate youngin' that mommy and daddy's worldview may be slightly skewed. That's horrifying. Teachers require licensure, specifically to prevent them teaching aberrant nonsense like this. Educational institutions face the accreditation process to ensure that they don't employ people purporting these kinds of absurdities. Summer Boysmere, in August of 2022, was forced to resign her position with Norman Public Schools in Oklahoma because she provided a QR code to her students that linked to the Brooklyn Public Library. She said, and I quote, "I had seen other teachers online talking about this, that the library was offering all students ages 13 to 21 in the United States access to a free e-library card that would give them access to the library's Books Unbanned program." Unquote. Her effort to facilitate student access to literature was seen as a political stunt. HB 1775 is now official policy in the state of Oklahoma. Several states have taken that success as an example and begun codifying similar legislative aberrations in the name of undermining the critical thinking of their youth. Texas's Republican coalition, for example, has made it no secret that they believe teaching critical thinking has no place in the classroom. From their 2012 platform, and again I quote, "Knowledge-based education. We oppose the teaching of higher-order thinking skills, critical thinking skills, and similar programs that are simply a relabeling of outcome-based education, which focuses on behavior modification and have the purpose of challenging the student's fixed belief and undermining parental authority." Unquote. The party opposes the teaching of higher order thinking skills because it believes the purpose is to challenge a student's fixed beliefs and undermine parental authority. Is it not the responsibility of the child to be greater than their parents, or at the very least, stand apart from them, the child as its own person, with its own beliefs and values? Would it not be considered a failure of parenting if my own children were simple carbon copies of me, mindlessly espousing the beliefs of their forebears? We walk so our children can run, not so they can be mired in our own backwards prejudices. Same goes for our students. Asimov's observation grows more prescient by the day. There are moneyed interests purposefully undermining the efficacy of American youth's ability to compete in this new and interconnected labor market under the banner of "my ignorance is as good as your knowledge."